everyone. Welcome to today's show. We got a special guest for you, former teammate of mine, born June 16th, 1991, from Decatur, Indiana. Played 2 seasons with the Helena Bighorns, won a Tier 3 junior national title. Also played 1 season for the Fort Wayne Federals. Then he went on to play overseas professional for 3 different teams. Glad to have him on the show, Cody Hess.
There goes that man's jockstrap.
Oh my God, did you see that? America's team? Yeah, right.
Oh, baby, it's a big day in sports.
There's nothing like battling it out with your teammates all season long to go win a championship.
Green Bay's got it this year.
Huge move for them. I think it's going to be a game changer.
We have a lot to talk about this busy week in the sports world. Welcome to the In a League of Their Own podcast.
How's it going, man?
Doing good. Got a half day because the storm rolled in, so able to do this with you guys today. Stoked to do it.
Glad it worked out. So let's dive into it right away. You're from Indiana here, so you want to kind of give a background of who you are and kind of how you got involved in the hockey world.
As a young hyper hellion of a kid, I'm in a little town. Back at the time, it was like 6,000 people. There wasn't much for little kids to do. So there was a roller rink right down the road, and they were the only sport I could play at that age. My parents enrolled me, started playing roller hockey, and away she went. That was the end of it. Hockey ever since.
So is that kind of what you did as a kid, not being around an ice rink? I know from trying to remember back from the junior days, I believe you lived a little bit out, quite like 45 minutes roughly or so, right, from the city?
We grew up like middle class, so like going to Fort Wayne, which was where the hockey rink, we never did that as a family, like once in a while for birthdays and occasions. So yeah, didn't really know about it. It was just roller hockey, and they ran a camp. And a guy by the name of Guy Dupuis, who's like an ECHL legend. Well, back then it was the IHL. And he came and did a camp. And, I was one of the better kids out there and approached my parents and was like, hey, you ever thought about getting Cody into ice hockey? And I think I was 8 or 9 at the time. And at that time, there was a rink a little bit closer on the south side of Fort Wayne. It was like a 30-minute drive. And he's like, well, there's a tryout for a travel team like next weekend. So the first time I ever skated on ice was actually a tryout, and I ended up making the team and being the captain my first time ever playing ice hockey. So
that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I remember I was so nervous the night before, and I had socks on, and my mom put like pine sol on our kitchen floor, and I was holding onto the counter practicing my stride because Guy had explained it was way different than roller hockey, and I was so nervous. Yeah. So that's how I got into ice hockey, and it was just the way it went. And yeah, for sure.
So then coming up through youth hockey, you played on this team growing up, and then I don't know, a lot of people don't really know, but the state of Indiana doesn't really have a high school hockey system that is in place. So what was the decision that you were kind of forced with to, since you're away, like for people who don't know, Cody's one of the best hockey players that I've ever played with, and seeing somebody with like that kind of talent, and then coming from like Wisconsin where we have high school hockey and there is good hockey players and stuff like that, to go to Indiana and see how it's kind of like, holy shit, like there's no high school hockey. You're like, what do these kids do? Like how do people who play hockey get out of Indiana? So kind of explain the process of what kind of was your decision when you reached the high school level?
Well, before I got to the high school level, so like maybe like 12, I actually started to get really into travel. And one of my coaches had approached my dad and said, if you want your son to go anywhere in hockey, you need to get him out of Fort Wayne. So at 13, I believe, I got picked up by a AAA team in Michigan called the Detroit Trackers, and kind of just went to the tryout, made the team. But I had to move there because, it was AAA. It wasn't just one practice a week. It was now 3 practices a week. And then every weekend we're going to Canada, Texas. And so I got a billet family and moved away from home at 13 years old. And about 2 months into the season, I couldn't do it. I was too young, homesick, moved back home, got back in our school. And my parents, man, sacrificed, drove me 3.5 hours to Ann Arbor, Michigan, 3 times a week to my practice. And then every weekend we traveled Canada, everywhere for this team for an entire year. And then I quit hockey after the season. All my friends were hanging out. So I quit hockey for a year, came back at 14, did a little bit of travel and stuff. And then when I was 15, I was a freshman. And I just kind of wanted to play high school hockey and have fun with the boys. But we didn't have a team for my school. And so we found this thing. It was called a draft. So there was only like 6 teams, 6 high schools in my area that had teams. And any kid that didn't go to a school that had a high school team, you went to a draft. So we played against each other. And then they drafted out of these kids to fill slots for other teams because not a single high school team had enough players in their high school to make a team. So you had like 8 kids from the school on the team, and then the rest were kids from other schools that tried out. So I ended up getting picked up by a team called Northside. And my first year there, I'll never forget it. Freshman, came in, and I think I finished 6th in the league in points as a freshman. And it was garbage hockey. What can I say? So then my sophomore year, I got approached again about, hey, don't play high school hockey. You need to get out of town. And I was just having so much fun. So I played one more year and had fun. We ended up going like 52-0. We lost the state championship. That was one of the only games we lost. And I was just set. I was just going to play high school hockey. I was kind of over it. And so I remember it being summertime, 16 years old. I'm at a party at a bonfire, and I see a Boston phone number. It was about the time like when they started, you could read where your phone call was coming from on your phone. It was one of those cool apps you could maybe paid like $1 for. And it said Boston. I'm like, what? So I'm drunk, 16, answer the phone. Hi, this is Richie Salzbrunn with the Boston Junior Blackhawks. This is Cody. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we just drafted you to the IJHL, International Junior Hockey League. Oh, okay. I'll have to call you tomorrow. And just hang up on the guy. I had no freaking clue, man. So I think the next morning I told my dad about it. And I just went out there, man. It was just, my dad bought me a plane ticket. I flew out there, did their tryout, and man, just being away from home with the boys. I did it at 13. Now I'm 16, going to be 17, older, more mature. Fell in love again. I fell in love with the game again, and the rest was history, man.
So like you said,
sorry, go ahead, Collin.
So like you said, you got a call that you got drafted. I guess for those listening to this, even myself included, not very familiar with the junior draft process. Like, did you know you potentially were going to get drafted, or like how
man.
From the way you said it, it sounded like it kind of came out of left field.
I think I was 14 or maybe a little younger, maybe like 13 when I got back to like playing just like basic hockey in town. We had a kid on our team by the name of Jackson Lee, and he plays for the Comets in the ECHL right now. He's from Fort Wayne originally. His dad was my coach. I had like 30 more points than this kid, but he gets drafted to the OHL that year, and everybody was all stoked for him. And I'm sitting there like, what? Like, did they not see me? So that's the first thing I ever noticed about junior teams drafting kids and stuff. So I had no clue, completely out of left field. And I don't think this league was even associated with USA Hockey at the time. It was kind of like an up-and-coming league, and nobody knew who I was. But that next year, after I finished that year, I got drafted by like every single junior Tier 3 team, other than the one team that I wanted to play for, which Austin said was Helena. They were big on everybody. Everybody knew them in the Tier 3 world, Helena Bighorns. And that's where I wanted to play. So that's like the only league that I didn't get drafted in. But yeah, no clue. Completely out of left field. Crazy.
Yeah. So then you talk about, did you end up going to play a full season out there in Boston?
So it's really a messed up situation. anytime you go anywhere, whether it be college or anything for like a recruitment type thing, they make it feel so cool. And like 16-year-old kid getting off a plane in Boston, getting picked up, and he drove some kind of sports car convertible, great salesman, took me to the rink, and it didn't even end up being the rink we played in, but it was a phenomenal rink. And then we played in this like shit box of a rink. Didn't even have a locker room. Like we had to take our bags home every night. And so after like 3 months, I went in and asked for a trade. But at this time, like 3 months, halfway through the season, I already had like 70 points. Like I finished that year, I think, with like 130. It wasn't even sanctioned, as you've seen, because it's not even on, elite hockey prospects or hockey DB. So it wasn't even sanctioned. But yeah, just complete salesman. So I actually asked for a trade to New Hampshire. New Hampshire had a team, and they were like, had a nice barn, awesome uniforms. We were still using like uniforms from the 80s, man. Like, I'm not kidding. Like the ones that had like pinholes in them and stuff. No joke, dude. You can go on my Facebook and see these photos. You had the big embroidered logo on them, and all the other teams were like fly as hell. And so I actually went behind my team's back, drove to New Hampshire, ran through 3 tolls because I'm from a small town, didn't even know what a toll was, to get to this New Hampshire team. My car breaks down. Like, it was just a whole shit show. But I get there and I skate with them. I wore a full mask and stuff, so nobody knew who I was. Talked to the coach. They tried to trade for me. My coach ended up finding out I went there, tried to find my parents. It was just a big shit show. I almost left the team. I almost quit. But my dad raised me to not be a quitter, so I stuck it out and just bit the bullet. But what a joke of a year, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of fun though.
Sounds like it. So then let's move past that year. After that, was that your first season that you went out to Helena?
Actually, that's kind of a funny story on how that came. So we'd all heard all the hype, and everybody heard all the hype about this Helena team and how like they just every year like they smoke every team in that league. And I told my dad that's where I wanted to play, and they only had tryouts in Vegas. They only held their one main camp in Vegas. That was their only tryout. And as I said, we didn't have money growing up. So my dad sends the owner, Mike Butters, an email. Now, if you guys don't know Mike Butters, he's the guy that made the Saw movies. He was a head scout, I believe, for the Tampa Bay Lightning for a while. He played for the Fort Wayne Comets, which is where I was from. So my dad sends this guy a spoof, like, hey, we looked him up, right, and found somebody he used to play with. And we said, hey, we ran into so-and-so, and he said gave us your email to contact about my son coming to play out there. And he responded and said, hey, well, main camp's in Vegas. And my dad, replied, hey, we can't really afford to send him to Vegas. He said, tell you what, just send him out. Training camp starts here in Montana. Send him out. We'll see what can happen. And I remember reading the email, and my dad straight up told this guy, like, now I'm telling you right now, my son's going to come out there and be the best player on the team, but don't let him know that. Make him earn a spot. And they did, man. But I flew out there. I made the team. I played third line for 3/4 the season. Ended up third or so on the team in points, like 70 points, and worked my way up there. And all of it came from just a spoof email that my dad had sent one of the general managers.
Hey, man, that's all it takes is to get one set of eyes on you and capitalize when you have that opportunity right in front of you, especially in the game of hockey too.
Dude, it's straight
You
politics.
never know. Exactly. And it's also that you never know that one game where you light it up, have a hat trick and 2 assists or something crazy where you got an NHL scout in the building who sees you and says, okay, maybe let's get this guy a shot.
That's how I got my agent. Well, you remember Lucas, right?
Yep.
The goalie from Czech Republic.
Yep, Czechsky.
He had an agent that had got him to the Federals, and his agent randomly logged on to watch our live stream one day and saw me and, hey, I want to pick this kid up. And that's how I got my agent. Just had a good game on a time that somebody was watching that I had no clue was even watching. So that's how I landed an agent.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then let's go to Helena, your second year. I'd imagine you were on the first line.
I was on the Paradise line, is what we called it.
Yeah, how
My
you guys
second
have
year,
100 points.
right? So to lead into going to my second year, my first year there, we went to nationals, and we made like the main stage. We didn't have to playing game like some teams do, and it was like the second game in, the coach comes in, moves me to first line, and this is the only time Scott Cunningham, I think, ever messed up as a coach. Our lines were set. We'd been running those lines for a couple months, and he decides it's now time to move me to first line, and you could tell we were off. But we went 1-1-1 in the round robin, and we lost, or we didn't even lose. We tied the New Hampshire Junior Monarchs, who were the team that went on to win it, and we tied them 1-1. And all we had to do was win that game to move into the semifinals. And because of goals against, we tied the team that ended up making it to win it. So that second year, pretty much we were in the locker room after the first year, and other than the veterans, every single one of us committed that we were coming back next year and we were winning natties. So, I mean, we had a handful of kids that weren't from the original team, and we had a kid that actually came from the USHL halfway through. We had 2 kids come from the NA halfway through. And the USHL kid and the 2 NA kids ended up being our third line. That's how good our first and second line was in tier 3, that we had kids coming down from the USHL and the NA that couldn't even crack our top 2 lines. And we went to nationals, man, and just, I mean, I think I ended the season with like 100 and some points, 113. Anthony Petrozelli was right behind me with like 111, who plays in the ECHL now. And then a kid named,
real quick. It was
go ahead.
114 points.
So yeah, there you go. And us 3, we could have all 3 went on to do amazing things. But out of the 3 of us, Petrozelli still plays in the ECHL. Ryan Parkhouse actually got a career-ending hit. He ended up going back and playing one more year of juniors, but at nationals, a kid blindsided him. But now he's like an amateur pro golfer. So all 3 of us ended up doing something. And yeah, we ended up winning nationals and had a blast, man.
Yeah, I really wish it would have worked, that collision course between your team and my team. I really wish the Chicago Hitmen, remember? We talked about that because we were the number 1 team all year long, and we were predicted to win it all, have no troubles. And then I remembered when I met you for because obviously we like probably ran into each other at nationals, not knowing who we were at that time. But then let's jump to the Fort Wayne season, where me and Spencer got in our little off ice thing that we got involved in, and then we got sent to Fort Wayne, where that first day we were at the rink. And I remember you sitting there with your fucking national championship ring on, sitting in the locker room. And I was like,
little prick.
Well, I looked at it and it said 2011. And I was like, you motherfucker. I was like, you're just like, because you saw my bag and it was a Hitman bag. And you're just like, oh, you were the Hitman? I was like, yeah. You're just like, oh, we were too bad we didn't get to play each other. That would have been really cool to see how that worked out. And
we were like preparing for you guys like the whole week before. And nothing against your team because we didn't get to play you, so I don't really know. But the Idaho Steelhead, man, they actually beat us in the round robin. And we actually got into the semifinals as a wild card team, and then ended up playing the Steelhead in the semifinals. And there was more people at the game against us versus the Steelhead in the semifinals than we're actually the national championship, because that Steelhead game, we ended up beating them like 2-1 in the semifinals. And the national championship game, I think we just killed the team. It wasn't even, it would have been more fun for the national championship game to be against Idaho than it would have been, because like 6 minutes into the game, we knew we were going to win. We were up like 3-0. What, sis? You're fine. It'll be all right.
And yeah, I just remember we tied our first game, South Shore Kings. They had like 6 guys that went on to play D1 hockey out east. Then we played Rochester, which was the most people I've ever played in front of. There's probably, do you remember the Rochester rink? How the full bowl? Full bowl. Yeah, it was jam-packed. There was standing room only. And it was like,
They had
oh my
blimps and
God, I've never
Yeah.
played in front of this many people, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
holy shit, you feel like you're in the NHL. And
Yeah. Oh,
especially
dude.
Rochester, how they made it too. And they had the hometown. It was like, it was insane. It felt like you were literally playing against the Minnesota Wild almost in Minnesota, with how the
Yeah.
Minnesota fans just going nuts. And then the one thing that I remembered from the All Nationals, at least from our goalie shit the bed. He let in 4 goals the second game, first 4 shots, and at that point we kind of knew it was over. That's when the game turned into a shit show. We set an all-time record, which is still actually a record: 210 penalty minutes by a team in one game.
Let's go. I like it.
So we got that. We were holding that still, but yeah. How was that to win the national championship? Like how was that, knowing from year 1 to year 2, your guys coming back saying we're committed to coming back and we're gonna win, and then ending up pulling it off? Like, how sweet is that?
It made it so much sweeter that we lost the game and then literally had to sit in our hotel room and wait for a single game to pan out to see if we were going to get the bye, the wild card. And then to come in as the wild card, knowing we were the best team there, and then prove it, that made it 10 times better. And I just remember that whole summer, just like, I thought I was, on top of the world and stuff. And it was tier 3 nationals, but it's no other feeling. I still haven't had that feeling to this day, other than when I played like my first pro game. I had goosebumps like that. But yeah, man, it was just a great feeling, and to have that group of guys that all committed to come back. And then I kind of ditched out on the 3rd season because we'd all had, made another commitment, like, let's come back and, go for 2 in a row. And nobody went back. It was a completely different team that 3rd year. As you know, I came and played in Fort Wayne, and yeah, but it was a great experience. But a little bit to what you were saying against all those kids that were committed, I remember playing New Hampshire the first year at Nationals that we lost. We tied them 1-1 and didn't make it. We were looking at they have little pamphlets for everybody. Drafted Columbus, drafted, committed D1, committed D1. And I remember Beacon, their goalie, I said something to their goalie. I was like, oh, it must suck to be a backup. And he's like, I'm committed to BC, bud. Where are you committed? And I'm just like, haven't even talked to a team. I'll shut my mouth. Yeah, crazy. But anyway.
Yeah, Collin, you got anything here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just obviously at that point, it sounds like that's where you guys kind of crossed paths. So, I guess both your time, I've heard the side from Austin's, or the story from Austin's side a few times with meeting you and like Spencer, all that kind of stuff. I guess kind of coming from Helena, I guess what's kind of your, after year 3, you go to Fort Wayne, and just kind of, I guess, picking up the story where you left off.
Yeah, so I guess to pick up the story, because how I ended up in Fort Wayne is, so when I was 16 playing in Boston, I came home for a Christmas break, and I met my now wife on Christmas break for the week I was home. And we started dating. And so I dated her all through the second half of Boston, both years in Helena. I ended up making an NA team for my last year of juniors in St. Louis. Shoot, I can't even remember what they're called. Allard, you got me on that? What were they called?
Was
Bandits.
The St.
Bandits.
Louis, the Bandits, and then the Springfield Junior Blues as well.
Bandits. And we were in the middle of training camp, and it was about 11 or 12 at night. And my girlfriend at the time says, I can't do this long distance anymore. At that time we'd been together 3-4 years, but only seen each other through the summer. And she said, I'm done. And I said, I'll pack up my bags right now and come home. And I did. 11 o'clock at night, packed up. I called Kevin Chapina, who was the coach of the Federals. And I think I skated with you guys before I went to St. Louis, so I kind of knew him a little bit. And I said, I have 2 stipulations. I can chew on the bus and in the locker room, and I get number 9. And he said, you have to fight Derek Moss, and don't tell anybody I'm going to allow you to chew. That was it. Derek Moss was the captain of the team, who was number 9 at the time. So then I came back, and I was kind of skeptical on it, but then I saw Allard and Spencer, who were the two kids that came from Oregon, who were the second and third best player, not to be arrogant, the second and third best players on the team in my eyes. And they were both defensemen. And I'm thinking, well, crap. If these two are the second, third best players as defensemen, we're fucked. But I made a pact with you guys and said, if you guys stay, I'll stay.
Yep.
And we all three honored it, which I did not expect to happen. And that's when I met Allard, and me, Allard, Spencer, and a few other kids clicked right away. And honestly, that was like the most clicky team I've ever played on. I've played on really good hockey teams, like 10 times better than us, but we just meshed. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say besides my Chicago year, that team that as good as we were, that was the most tight-knit family, but Fort Wayne is second, like right behind that. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
like the
total
emotions.
family.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, a lot of fun. But yeah, Moss didn't end up giving me number 9. I ended up wearing 6. For the first time in my life, I wasn't number 9. But
hey, it worked out for you. You ended up with 109 points. So
ended up having a really good year. And I think halfway through the year, Helena actually tried to trade their top forward and 2 top defensemen for me, and Chapina turned it down. Have you ever heard that story, Howard?
Yeah, you told that a couple times.
I was on a conference call with Chapina, the coach of Helena, which was Scott Cunningham, and the general manager of like all tier 3 hockey, like that ran the whole thing. And that guy said, all right, I've heard both sides of the story from them. I'm just going to go straight to Cody. Cody, if you want to go to Helena, I'll push the trade through. If you want to stay in Fort Wayne, I'll cancel it. And Chapina just lost his mind. And the commissioner looked right at Chapina and said, listen, they're trading their 3 best players for 1 best player. There's no way you shouldn't accept this trade unless the player comes to you and says he doesn't want to take the trade. And I remember sitting with I think she was my fiance at the time, because I had proposed halfway through our season. And I said, do you want me to go or not? And she said she didn't care, but you could tell she didn't want me to go. So I didn't go. I stayed, and I don't regret it. But man, I wanted to get to nationals and play against them, you know?
That's how me and Spencer were with the whole why we ended up sticking it out too, is hopefully we'd get that run at Oregon out there at nationals. And yeah, unfortunately
Yeah.
never got that chance to do it. But yeah, that would have been cool. And like, as far as you saying how you, me and Spencer, like we kind of like made that pack at like the beginning of the year, was like, hey, we're in it for the long haul, and let's just do the best that we can here.
Season. We should have never lost to Chicago in the championship of our league though either.
No, we should have lost a handful of those games that we ended up losing. But hey, what can you do though? Like, I mean, not talking shit or anything, but it's just like that team. I'm surprised we made it as far as we did, because obviously, like you said, when your second and third best players on the team are your defensemen, that's an issue, especially in hockey. You need at least 3 forwards to be able to at least hang.
A shout out to a couple guys that we picked up through the way. Spots was pretty good. Resputnik.
Mm-hmm.
We picked up Tyler Mason, who's a good player, and then Nick Denise, Derek Moss. For that tier and that level, I think we had 2 solid lines of forwards. We just didn't have that third line kicker.
No, we didn't.
Played who was that? The Hampton Whalers for the playing game.
Yep.
I think we were better than that team. We just got out coached.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and especially look at the amount of ice time that you, myself, and Spencer were logging during this. Like, you can't expect to. Especially young kids like that. Like, I got granted we were in primetime shape and whatever, but it's like you can't expect kids to do that for an entire season and never get burnt out. And we got burnt out.
Spencer and I talked about it the other day, how when we got to that game, it was like he didn't even give us a break. I went every other shift the entire game. And I think by the halfway through the second period, I finally looked at him when he called my name to go, and I said, I can't. I need a break. I'm not doing anything on the ice because I'm tired. What's the point of putting me out there?
Yeah.
You know, had he conditioned us for it, but we didn't condition at all in Fort Wayne.
No, we never did. That is the one thing we did.
We had Paul Panchenko as a trainer, and we'd all
That
just
was
go sit up
awesome,
there.
though.
We'd just go roll the whole time.
That was cool, though, having him. That is the
Yeah.
When I was in Chicago, I had a guy, his name is Rob Rosmus. He worked for the Atlanta Thrashers, and he was their athletic trainer. So that it was cool to have an NHL guy kind of showing you. And he, like, that was the big thing that opened my eyes, was stopping and starting all the time, like all the time, is so bad for your knees. And like he was just saying, like NHL guys, like they're never stopping and start. It's all quick turns, working on your edges, balance, stuff like that. Because if you get that far, you know how to stop and start.
And that's
so why continue to keep wearing and tearing your knees, which is very important to your body.
In Helena, we did a ton of conditioning, but he never told us this, but it was all flow conditioning. We didn't do lines and stuff like that. We did a lot of flow conditioning. So I hear you on that. I never noticed that, or I've never heard that, but it makes sense now.
Yeah, it's one of the main reasons, especially why nowadays you're not seeing as many guys get injured, like knee injuries, as much as back in the day, where guys would get hurt all the time with their knees and stuff. It's like, I feel like that development has finally made it all the way through to like youth hockey, where kids are actually being preserved from the time that they're little kids to actually have a chance to make it.
Around here, you go to the rink to play beer league here, and you still see all the lines and everything's chopped up. You're like, God, I'm not gonna play beer league on this. Yo, I'm not kidding though. Our beer league teams could probably compete at the SP level around here. No joke.
Oh, I believe it. That's a big hotbed. I mean, that's a pretty big hotbed for hockey players.
A lot of the ECHL players hang around. So, for instance, we have the ex-Minnesota Wild coach was on my team this year, Ben Boudreau, Bruce Boudreau's son. So you had me, him, handful of D1 kids, Nick Denise, Brendan Lewis plays in it. I mean, it's a good league. It's still a lot of fun. We play like Thursday nights. It's like I think like a 22 game season, but something to look forward to every week. Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool that you're still doing that. And then, so let's move on to, so we finish up the Fort Wayne year. It's the off season and you've aged out of juniors. What's your next step in how you ended up making it over to Sweden?
It was Czech Republic.
Or Czech Republic.
Yeah, it was Czech Republic. Yeah, it's not Czechoslovakia anymore. They'd split. But anyway, so as I was saying, we had a goalie from Czech Republic, and his agent had seen me through our live stream, and they told me, hey, listen, there's like 2 or 3 spots open. I can't guarantee anything, but I can get you on the ice to try to make it. So I remember showing up, and there's like, I mean, it wasn't cheap to go there. I had to pay for my plane ticket to fly over there. I stayed with Lucas for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks beforehand, just to kind of fly out there and get acquainted first. And I show up, and there's like 30 kids trying out for like 2 or 3 spots. And I just put my nose down and grinded, man. And I worked harder than I've ever worked before. And it got down, to where we started playing preseason games, and there was like 5 of us left for like 2 spots. One of the spots had just been signed by this young stud of a kid. I mean, just seen the ice. Like, I see the ice well. This kid saw the ice. And we all knew he was getting a spot. And it came down, well, we start preseason, and I ended up playing really well. And it was like me, there was 1 spot left, and it was me and a kid from Russia. And we go to play Kladno, which is Yamir Yager's team. And I just remember walking in, and Yager's just sitting on the bench, and like, I'm like, jaw hits the table. I'm like, that's Yamir Yager. And there's only like 3 kids on my team that speak English. And the kid beside me is like, Yager, and blah, 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 blah. Starts speaking, and I'm just like, like starstruck. So anyway, we get dressed, and the way in the Czech Republic, like, your locker rooms are together. You walk out, there's no divider in the benches. Like your team's like, it's just a respectful game, so they don't worry about it. But like if that was in America, like there's no way you're keeping those teams separate. And I remember going out for warm-ups and Yager's just sitting there in his equipment on the end of the bench. I'm like, he's gonna play. I mean, it's his team, he owns it. And sure enough, dude, he's out there playing, starts, and we end up beating them 2-1. And I had 1 goal and 1 assist. And I sniped from the blue line. And, you know, just because it was Yager, I started to do the Yager salute towards the bench. And I was just like, better not, better not do that. So anyway, I get undressed, get on the bus, and the general manager, my coach didn't speak English. The general manager sits down beside me and signs me. And I'm sitting beside the Russian kid. And I get signed, you know, on the bus trip home. I get that last spot. And it was just like so much emotion. Like I did it. I finally did it. And I remember calling my parents from like a weird phone because like you couldn't call from, it was like Viber or something. Oh, dude, it was awesome. So that's how I ended up getting signed and made that team. And my agent actually called me the next day. We had like our first regular season game coming. I finished 3rd on the team in points in preseason. And this was the first league in Czech. One of the kids that spoke English was in New York playing for the Rangers when the Twin Towers got hit. He actually watched the Twin Towers get hit from his hotel while he was with the Rangers. Isn't that nuts? Yapechko was his name.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. So anyway, my agent calls and says, hey, Kladno is going to be here tonight to watch you, which Kladno was like the extra league. So like I was in like the AHL of theirs. So I'm like nervous, like, okay, I just dummied this team. They just saw me. They want to make sure it wasn't a spoof. I'm getting dressed, tying my skates, and in comes the general manager. Cody, you can't play. And I'm like, what? And he's like, your transfer didn't go through from USA Hockey. And I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, apparently you owe your coach money. And I'm like, yeah, but we have a payment plan. Because remember, as I said, grew up middle class, small town, full of factories. We owed the Federals like $2,000. My dad had a payment plan set up with them. My dad wasn't going to not pay it. My dad's a man of his word. We run a business on a handshake. We don't even require contracts. And I couldn't play. And my wife, my fiance at the time, was 17 years old, emptied her entire bank account to pay for it so I could get back on the ice. But it took like 2 weeks for the transfer to go through. And by that time, they were 6 games into the season. They hadn't lost a game. I finally get back on the ice, and I get sent down to Drosy Belina, I believe is how you say it, which is the 2nd league, but technically the 3rd league. And I just got a raw deal, man. It really sucked. So, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, looking at that, it looked like you played 15 games for them and you had 12 points. So it seems like you were holding your own over there and doing pretty well on that. Was it just the living in a different country, kind of not getting that raw end of the deal because of everything that happened type of the reason why you're just like, fuck this?
I didn't really say fuck this until probably till Most, HC Most, Moist is actually how you say it. They actually bought my rights for 20 games, which the weirdest thing, I don't know if that happens here in America.
No, it's like soccer rentals over there. Yeah.
But so I got sent down to that Bielina team, and I mean, I was easily the best player in that entire league. Like, so when they sent me down, I understand why they sent me down because I hadn't played and stuff. So they sent me down to get some play-in games. And then when they called me back up, I played the first game. I was on 4th line. I logged like 3 minutes of ice time. And then the lockout got announced. And Yager came over to Kladno. I mean, a bunch of players came back to Czech Republic, you know, that were in the NHL and AHL and those leagues. And so then players came down from that top league to the 1st league. And then they were like, hey, you were down there. And rather than loaning some of these other kids, we're just going to send you back down. So I got sent down because of the lockout. So the NHL lockout fucked my career 100%. Well, other than the Federals and not letting my transfer go through because I was third on the team in points in preseason. I was set to do really well. I had Kladno watching me. You know, Yamir Yager's team was scouting me, for God's sake. And it just raw deal. So anyway, that lockout happens. I get sent back down. I think the lockout ended. Did it end halfway? Like, did they end up playing?
Halfway, and they played like 28 games or something like that.
Yeah. So I got called back up when that got ended. I played a handful of games maybe, but I wasn't getting any ice time. They had already had their line set. Like, we were winning. You know, they're a good team. They were one of the top teams in the league that, you know, Usti was. And so to get back in the lineup was just difficult, you know. Imagine like a starting pitcher, you know, just to get it back into the rotation. So HC Most, who was not a very good team in the league, actually bought my rights. And when they bought my rights, the coach that bought them, the day after he bought my rights, the coach gets fired. They get a new coach, and the coach completely hated Americans. Like, I ended up staying there for like 20 games, maybe. Fourth line, maybe logged 10 minutes of ice time in 20 games. Like, half the games I got dressed, just sat on the end of the bench. And that's when my whole attitude changed. And I was a young kid, you know, 21 years old. My wife was there, and we decided that, you know what, fuck it. We're just going to have a vacation. We started going to Prague, going to visit castles. I stopped showing up for practice because the way it worked was when my buyout or loan ended, I went back to Usti, and I would practice with Usti, but then every game I would get sit down to play with Bielina. So I never actually practiced with Bielina. I literally would just go to games. So I would call my GM and be like, hey, do you want me to come practice today? And he'd be like, well, no, we're doing this with the team, like a team practice. And I'd be like, okay. And he'd be like, well, you can just come skate or do whatever you want, but you have a game on Wednesday and Bielina. And I'd just be like, all right. So I just stopped going to practices, and we just started going to Prague and touring. And then I'd say, hey, they'd call and say, hey, you got a game here and here with Bielina. I'd be like, okay. Or they'd call and be like, hey, you're going to play tonight. So I'd go in and I'd do my little skate with them in the morning. I'd play for Usti. And I was just kind of like, I was just there living in the moment, you know, living in the moment. So then the end of the season comes, we're getting ready for playoffs. And by this time I was pretty much fully back in Usti, practicing every day, you know, with Usti. And the GM calls me in, and I mean, I'm not too conceited, but I was easily a top 2-line guy for Usti, and everybody knew it. It's just, I couldn't get a fair shake. If I'm talking too much, y'all can talk in.
No, dude. No, dude.
So
it's great to hear this, especially.
I've really never told this story other than to like close people, just because it gets me kind of worked up. But anyway, so it's like right before playoffs, and the GM calls me in Usti and says, hey, we have to have this many guys set for the roster for playoffs. And, you know, we're going to send you down to Bielina for playoffs. And I thought, I had a 1-and-1 contract, and they didn't physically say I wasn't coming back next year. But I said, hey, can I just get a buyout for the rest of this year? My wife, she was done. She had already told me, like, we're not coming back next year. Nobody spoke English because we're in a little town. We weren't in Prague. And I feel so bad for her, bless her heart. We lived in a studio apartment, you know, and she didn't go anywhere for like 9 months, like, unless it was with me, you know? So when I was on the road, she was just sitting there. So she had already said she didn't want to come back. So I said, can I just get a buyout? They literally handed me a wad of cash, whatever my buyout was. And I went home. And we got on a plane and flew home. So that's how it all ended.
Yeah, that's neat to hear that. I'd never got to hear the full story, because playing juniors and stuff, you know, guys going their separate ways and doing all that sort of thing. You kind of appreciate the year that you have, and you kind of move on, you know. And
I got to say, I played, you know, I did it.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Not many people even get a sniff of pro hockey. So
the worst part about it is like everybody I talk to is like, even now they're like, you're not still playing hockey? Like, no. And they're like, you're the best hockey player I knew. And I'm like, yeah, you should have told that guy. I mean, he's the guy that owns that team, you know? But yeah, it is what it is. It got me to where I am today. I have a help my dad run our family business, have a wife, 2 kids.
Seems to be everything worked out all right then, huh?
Hockey was my life from like 10 years old, like 10 years till I was 22. I didn't know anything other than hockey. And there's so much outside of hockey in this world that people like you and I that dedicated our whole life to one sport never knew was out there. And
No.
just a whole new ball game. And that's why my kids, they've got mini sticks and stuff. I don't know if I'm going to get them into hockey. I don't know. I don't want them to live that.
That's one thing I've had conversations with buddies and stuff too as well. It's just like, for as much as I've dedicated my life, and I'm sure you're thinking the same thing, as much time, especially to really make it, the amount of time and the stuff that it's so much where you'd like to see your kids do something else, and to get to experience something else in life instead of doing the same thing all over again. Basically, it's just like you said, there's so many different things on this planet to do, and being so consumed by one thing, in the short meantime is great. It keeps you busy and stuff like that, especially if you're good at it. But in the long run, it's like when it's done, because it always comes to an end at some point, no matter if it's on your own volition or injury or whatever the case may be. But
hey, buddy, shut the door. Here, you guys want to meet my son?
Yeah.
Come here, little man.
Hi, how's it going?
Say, this is Wyatt. Say hi. And my daughter, Aubrey.
Hi.
Hello.
See it? Say hi. He's Collin. And the other one was Austin. Okay, can you guys go shut the door so I can finish? Thank you. Have fun. Okay, no, you definitely got to go. My lab. Come here. Get out of here. Sorry about that, guys.
You're good.
So where were we? Oh, we were talking about like our whole life's being consumed. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, I look at them and I'm like, I remember being 15 years old. And when I started really getting back into hockey with high school, and every weekend we had like, they called them crossover games where you'd go play other high schools on the weekends. And all my friends would be having parties and stuff and birthday parties or whatnot. And you just didn't get time to go to them. Or travel hockey growing up when I was 11 years old, every weekend. And then I'd come back to school and all the kids and all my friends would be talking about, oh, we went to Brandon's house and played football all weekend. And I'm like, oh, I sat in a hotel and played hockey. At the time I didn't care, but now I look back at it, you miss so much of your childhood.
Yeah, you really do. You really do. But yet again, that's like, for people who don't know, Cody, you're just more of like the straight arrow kid. You'd sit at home, play video games. You're pretty much all about hockey. And just looking back at that Fort Wayne team that we had, we would always get after it like every single weekend, even during the week, sometimes just including everybody on the team just to make everybody feel like they're part of the family, because that is so important, whether or not you're getting the ice time or not. Just to feel important and be a part of, what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it just was, I feel like, and that was one of the main reasons why that team why we were so close.
And if you remember, I think you came down and stayed at my house once.
Yeah, me and Spencer did.
Yeah. So Spencer actually lived with me. It didn't last long. Yeah. It didn't last long because he realized like, hey, Cody lives 45 minutes away. Cody doesn't go to any of the parties. So I don't get to go to any of the parties. And he ended up moving out, So, but me and Spencer, man, we still have a really good relationship. We talk, 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, I talk to you every once in a while. We get on and play some Xbox together. Still be kids at heart. That's honestly, if I could talk to a young kid, I just tell them you only get as old as you want to get.
Yeah.
You can still be a kid. So. Yeah, I try to be a kid as much as I can still. How about you?
Amen. I feel like having that mindset of being able to do that is awesome. You only have to grow up if you really, if you feel like you have, obviously you grow up over the course of life, but you can still enjoy to do things that you enjoyed to do as a little kid throughout your entire life.
Absolutely. And honestly, hockey growing up as a kid, I think makes you a way better person. Like, I'm not going to throw names out, but I know some of my friends that I grew up with that never had any structure. You know, they didn't play sports at all. And if you look at most kids that grew up in a structure and played sports, everybody has something, still a goal that you're set for. I mean, look, you're doing this podcast now. Like, we always have a drive. People like you and I and other kids that I played hockey with, you're never done. You're always looking for that next best thing. What, dude? Hey, let's not be a tattletale. Okay, I'll be out in a minute. Okay, we got it. Thanks, dude. Love you. Sorry. He's 3 years old. He's in that tattletale age.
Everything he sees got to tell mom and dad.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, I get you guys talking about, I guess, with kind of the hockey world, how it, like, kind of saying it consumed you and you missed out on some stuff growing up. I guess kind of hearing some of the stories from the other side, being a multi-sport athlete growing up, I never got into hockey, I guess, but hearing all these kind of stories, as much as you guys say, oh, we missed out on stuff, I kind of envy a lot of the stuff you guys did as far as getting out of the state at an early age, meeting a lot of people, and kind of just learning about the hockey world. It's such a small, it's a professional sports organization, but it's so small to where you learn one person, but you actually get to know like 10 other people, to where myself, I didn't get out of the state sports wise until college when I did D3 track. So it's just like getting to experience that at a young age. I think definitely it makes you more open-minded. Every person I've ever talked to that's ever played hockey, they're all open-minded people. None of them are really cut and dry, live their life one way and kind of just shut out the world, because they met people from other countries. Where you said when you're in Czech, you only had a couple other people on your team that spoke English. So I'm sure that was a frustrating but fun experience to kind of learn the nuances of a different culture and stuff like that.
You're completely right on that. Like, yeah, I sit here and say I missed a lot of my childhood, but you're right. I got to do a lot of things that a lot of people didn't do. I mean, I lived in 5 different states and, you know, all that stuff. And I see it from both ways. I guess I shouldn't say it like that you didn't have a childhood. It's just a different childhood, I guess I should have said. Yeah, for sure. It's a different way to look at it. Never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
Well, and hockey is different too. Like the part is like Collin mentioned, the traveling part. Hockey is one of those sports where it is different, where not every town has a football field, or every town has a track, or every town has a basketball court. Like hockey, especially a lot of, like, even in Wisconsin here, there's, I mean, more now, but then yet again, also at the same time with how sports is being treated with the whole contact and stuff like that. Hockey's like, it feels like it's dying around where I live, at least, which is sad to see, but you're seeing more and more like deals come with them, like being on TV more. And I just feel like the communities that don't have the money, I feel like, are losing hockey. And
I mean, around here, we have one rink. We just got Trine University that just got a rink finally. I thought they were coming in. So Trine University, I think, now has a D3 team. I don't know if it's D3 NCAA, though. It might be like ACHA. We've got Indiana Tech. You know, they play out of the one rink we have in Fort Wayne. So there's just not a lot around here.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I heard you guys talking about that too with Spencer, you know.
Yeah, like we're like you guys are just talking about how basically every high school has a football field and a track, but not every school has like a hockey rink or even just a facility to have a hockey rink. Where even for myself, where I grew up, I would have had to drive about 45-50 minutes to the closest rink, which would have been Green Bay, Wisconsin. And even then they had like 2 or 3 high schools combined to form a hockey team, because they obviously, kind of like you were saying, that you had like your draft where that one school had enough for a hockey team, so you had to kind of all pull together. Green Bay being pretty much second, third biggest city in Wisconsin now, they have that issue where they can't have a hockey team with one school. They got to combine Preble and Southwest and East all to make one hockey team. So
and that's just crazy. And they have the USHL team there too.
Yo, Green Bay Gamblers.
Yeah. So it's like you have a USHL team in town, and you still can't get enough kids in high school to even draw.
But here's the thing. Here's why the Green Bay Gamblers are so successful, and just like how Helena, Montana was so successful. There's other than the Green Bay Packers, there's nothing else around there. So a junior team can be successful there. So in Helena, I think they had a single A ball team. We were celebrities there. I mean, we were. We packed. We got 3,000-4,000 fans. They had a hot tub. You could buy hot tub seats for our game. We had a bar. We had our own beer. People wore our jerseys. I mean, it felt like a minor league hockey team, and it was junior A tier 3. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure that's why Green Bay does so well. It's the only thing around.
Yeah, you're right. Because I looking back at it when I lived in Chicago, playing in. It was like an hour and 35-minute drive to the rink. Was the closest rink where the team was located, because everything's so spread out there. And then there's so much to do in Chicago. It was tough to draw fans on the weekend or during, when you got
There's
the
too much to do around
Blackhawks
there.
playing, the Bulls playing, the White Sox, the Cubs, and then you have the AHL team. You got the Rockford. You know what I mean? There's so much to do there. Where exactly you said. Playing in that smaller market, you really do get to feel like professionals.
What are you going to do in Helena? You're going to go to a hockey game. There's nothing else to do. And that's why Fort Wayne had such a problem with their junior team. We had to compete with the Comets, which was an ECHL team. What are you going to go to? An ECHL game or our game? I know where I'm going,
Absolutely.
But as far as going back to Collin here, a lot of kids that played multi-sports in high school is you had that fan base because you had all the the families and stuff there. You felt like you were playing in front of a crowd, and there's a lot of times we had to go play with 2 parents in the stands. It was just I don't know, if I could go back, I would have played more high school sports. I wish I would have done that. And if you look though, I mean, look at trying to play hockey. A pair of skates can cost you $800 to $1,000.
Even more than that now, I think.
Yeah, a stick's $300. Your kid wants to play basketball. What do you got to buy? A pair of shoes, a $20 basketball,
and a ball.
Yeah. You look at soccer. You got to buy cleats, shin guards. That you can go to Walmart and get that. You can't go to Walmart and get anything hockey. They're about at their time limit. Shut the door, Wyatt.
No, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like, playing hockey is very expensive, and that's why these communities who are struggling like with money and stuff, who aren't these super rich communities or have a successful investing group willing to put money into something, it is very tough for like hockey to end up coming out of it. Because it's just like, I was the first kid at my high school to leave to go play juniors, because I never knew what juniors even was until I had a coach show up at my house knocking on my doorstep with the contract. It's kind of like, hey,
yes,
and it's just like, what? Like a contract? Like they make you feel like you're a professional, and it's just like, come check this out, come do this. It's like, oh my God. And then now, like, even around the area, there's been a handful of guys who's made it to the NHL, like, that I've played against growing up, and they all left. Everybody who's ever went on to play is left. Like Cole Caulfield is the latest one. He left to go play for team, the development team over in Michigan, and now he's playing for the Montreal Canadiens. So it's pretty surreal to see like everybody leaving, and then it's like Max McCormick. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a 92. He's from Green Bay. He plays for Carolina. He scored 2 goals in 2 straight games now after being back off the IR.
That's awesome.
So it's like everybody who's gone on to make that level, like you even said yourself, you have to leave. Like how people were telling you, you got to get out of here if you want to make it. Like, you can't get stuck in your hometown, dude. Like, getting stuck in your hometown, like your relationships, your friends, all that type of stuff. Like if that hook is like sunk into you, you ain't ever leaving. You ain't ever gonna push yourself to go over the hump and try something different.
And so I think we were just a little too early. I always say, had I went through now, like right now with the talent I had, it would have been totally different. Yeah, because it felt like when we were going through, scouts weren't getting out as much, or maybe it's just the social media. I don't know what the difference is now, but so many more people get recognized now than back in the day. It was so hard.
I think it is a social media presence. By the time you're 13 years old and you're on a AAA team, you could be posting your highlights and NHL scouts could already know who you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
social media aspect is
Back
amazing.
Back in the day, if you saw a 13-year-old, it was on ESPN. That was, you know what I'm saying? That's what it was.
Crosby was like the only kid, or McDavid were like the only kids that you'd ever hear about who were like high school kids.
My dad used to bring an old VCR and stuff to, record my games, but it was, who would have thought to send stuff like that out? What, buddy? Hey, I'm not going to be much longer, okay? Okay, I'll see you in a bit.
I feel. Oh, sorry.
Just circling back before I forget the point you had mentioned about in high school, you wish you maybe would have did other sports. If hockey didn't pan out the way it did, whether you just wasn't available to do it or you just weren't as good at it as you were, what other sports would you have considered doing?
I got old enough in my town to start playing soccer, like at the youth age. I played soccer, so I was a two-person sport. I played soccer. In my freshman year, I played soccer for my high school, and I walked on and took a senior spot at forward. So I was really good at soccer. But then my soccer coach said, "Hey, it's hockey or soccer," and of course I went hockey. So it would have been soccer or basketball because I'm like 6'2" and I'm actually really good at basketball. I mean, I'm just an athlete. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of hockey players in general are athletes, can play about any sport. I mean, Allard can attest to that.
Yeah.
You play, Collin?
What's that?
Play.
I did football, track, and wrestling. High school I went to it, going to Coleman, Wisconsin. It was more or less like a religion basically in that town to wrestle. If you're on the basketball team, it's like, what the hell are you doing kind of thing. So I ended up doing track in college just because that's what I got good at. But it kind of ended there. Just did 2 years in college, and now I just sit and talk about sports, which I enjoy a lot better because it's a lot less wear and tear on the body.
Yeah, not kidding. You're not kidding, that's for sure. So I recently got into boxing, and I had my first fight scheduled in Cincinnati, and it got canceled from COVID, and haven't put the gloves back on since.
No way. You've actually been.
Yeah, I was training at Lee Brothers MMA and got really into it and signed up for my first fight. I actually fought a kid, these kids. Yes, buddy. I can do it after this. Okay. Shut the door. Thank you.
Just like, Dad, what are you doing in there?
I knew I'd get at least an hour from them until they bothered me. They're my kids. They ain't bothering me, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got into boxing, and it was like a month before COVID. There was a kid that was actually getting ready for, like an amateur fight. And I went to the 5:45 a.m. classes before I would go work. And it was like an hour class, and it was more to get in shape because I got up to 230 pounds. And you know me, Allard, I was always a string bean.
Fucking skinny little rail.
I mean, I played hockey at like 165, 170. And I was up to 230. And I thought something's got to change. My buddy actually was like, "Hey, you want to come box with me?" We showed up for the first class. He didn't even make it through the class, never went back, and I got hooked. Like every morning I got up at 4:45, got to my workout, did my workout, full day's work, came home, went to bed at like 7, got up, did it all again for 6 months straight. But anyway, so this kid asked me if I'd spar with him to get him ready. And I actually knocked him out, like dazed him. And the guy that ran the class came up and was like, "You've boxed before?" And I'm like, "No, I started here 6 months ago." And he's like, "There's a one round. It's so like your first ever fight. If you've never fought before, they do a 1 round, 1 minute fight. That way you don't like go into a 3-minute fight or a 3-round fight and be scared and then have to finish it or look like it. So they just do a 1 minute, 1 round. You don't have time to think about it. You either like it or you don't." So he got me signed up for that, and then COVID hit and the gym closed down. I mean, you guys know how COVID affected everything. Then when this gym opened back up, they didn't have the personnel. They got rid of the morning classes. I just didn't get back into it.
You think you'll get back into it when everything gets back to normal?
Well, so we had my wife's mother and my mom babysitting the kids, and now we don't have that. So I couldn't even physically do it because I got to take them at 7 a.m. So we're kind of, as soon as I get a chance, it's going to happen. But like family life, I'm not trying to go to the 5:45 classes. Like I got a family now. I can't go work all day and then go do boxing every night. It's not like we're younger anymore.
Yeah.
I used to, before we had kids, I'd work a half day. I'd go golf. I'd go to basketball every night, come home, go to bed, wake up and I'd golf every day at 11:45, go to basketball or hockey every night of the week. And then we had kids and my wife's like, hey, something's got to change. So mom will be home in about an hour. Okay.
Speaking of the boxing world, here's your chance. You got a platform. Call Jake Paul. So something up here. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm not that dumb. Jake Paul. People can say what they want about the kid.
He can box.
Even if he can't, he is an ox. I've seen him train. I wouldn't mess with him. You see all those idiots on here like, oh, come on, Jake Paul. No. Allard, you know me. I had a fighter that fought for me in hockey. The fact that I even started boxing, everybody made fun of me, but I got pretty good. But no, I don't know if I could do it.
Well, if you do, we'll let us know when that fight is, and we'll definitely we'd come out and do a little piece for our show. I think that'd
be fun.
That'd be cool to do.
I'll send you a video I got in my first fight 2 weeks ago, Allard.
In hockey?
Guess who I fought?
Moss.
I fought my fighter.
Actually?
Yeah, we just it was the last game of the season in our beer league, and he was like, "Hey, we're going to." He called me an hour before the game, and he's like, "Hey, you going to the We had lost. We both lost our semifinals, so it was just a consolation game, Calls me an hour before the game. I completely forgot we had a game. Like I was half drunk, and he's like, "Hey, you want to fight tonight?" And then sit at the bar and watch the championship game. And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I went up there, and it's before the game. He's like, "Hey, let's fight." And I was like, I drove all the way up here. As you know, it's a 45-minute drive for me to get to the rink. I was like, let's fight in the third period. So he's like, all right. So I'm on the ice at 6 minutes left in the game, and Moss gets off the ice for a change. And I was hyping myself up to do it. And so then I changed with 5 minutes left, and Moss is still on the bench. Nobody on his team was changing. So I looked at Moss and was like, hey, as soon as we get out, let's go. And he's like, all right. So I get back out with 4:30 left. Moss is still on the bench. And so 2 minutes left in the game, there's a whistle. Somebody finally changes. I'm 2.5 minutes into a shift and stayed out and fought him. And it was fun, man. I cracked him once, but he got some good body shots on me.
Yeah, he was one of those guys on our team. I know, just like myself, I put myself in that category as well. As there was ever a time that anything needed to be done, no questions asked, I'm in there.
Wisconsin, where somebody was messing with me or fucking with me, and you and Spencer just piled on some kids.
Oh yeah, dude. That's the one thing I've always I'd personally, you, for instance, the points that you put up and stuff like that. It's playing defense in the era that we grew up in, how you said, playing hockey now, you'd be in the NHL because it's strictly a skill. Yeah. It's all skills, dude. And you were one of those kids where you had the skill. The physical part, I feel is what kind of caught you at sometimes, where nowadays you don't really have to worry about that. And everybody's just skating around 100 miles an hour, fucking bar down every time. And it's just that was your game.
That was my game, yeah.
Back then, that was my game, the physical style, getting in people's faces, I can't tell you how many times during that season did we have fights, dude. Our team was.
Remember Drussel, his very first game with his Riot Shield fought? Tyler Drussel.
And Spotnik too. He dropped it in the league tournament the first game. I still remember getting that kid onto our team. Texted coach and being like, hey, I got a buddy who I used to play AAA with back in the day, because that was when we had a couple kids leave. for whatever reason. That was like
I was super nervous when Spot showed up. I was like, whoa, this is my team. This kid's pretty good. But good kid, man. Great kid. End up loving the kid.
yeah,
But
he's married now, I think.
big fisherman now.
Oh yeah, I think he's trying to make it pro.
Yeah. I get him on Snapchat every once in a while with him and his wife out fishing. But let me go back to a fighting story real quick. Do you remember McLaughlin for Chicago? The big defenseman?
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't remember. It was late in the season. I looked at the kid off the face-off, and I used to fuck with people just so Moss had to fight. And I looked at the kid, and I said, hey, bud, who's your dietitian? And Derek looks at me and goes, nope, ain't doing it. Dropped the puck. Derek went and changed it. And I was like, oh, shit. He didn't come after me. Got lucky, but, oh, man. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, Moss. You remember when Jarvis kicked his ass?
Yep, I do. When he
St.
was,
Louis?
oh, I'm gonna pump this kid. I'm gonna pump this kid. This kid can't fight, and he just gets fucking banged, and it's just like
the kid weighed like $120. Jarvis weighed like $120 and kicked the shit out of Moss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be my fighter. What the fuck?
But that's the thing now too. It's like a lot of those kids that were able to make it, like, probably wouldn't be able to make it nowadays because you have the skill that you need. Where it's not the tough sons of bitches.
Oh yeah. Even in Helena,
like,
dude, we had 2 kids on our team in Helena that were strictly there to fight.
Every team had that. You had at least 2, and one was a heavyweight, and you had one guy that was like a light/middleweight that would take everybody, and then you had the heavyweights who would go at it. Like I that's one thing I remember in Chicago. Getting there, we had this kid who played in the NA for 3 seasons for the Wenatchee Wild, and he got dropped down to our team as a fighter. And this kid's his name's John Mejia. I think he's like Samoan, but his fists, dude, are like the size of half your face.
One punch breaks your orbital bone.
Yep, and that's what he would do. He was the guy where the other tough guy would be out there. Coach would send him out there. They both fucking slash each other, and it's like, okay, it's on.
Oh yeah, Ty Schindler was our fighter in Helena. And him and a kid from Yellowstone Quake from Wyoming. Every time we played them, they would fight once at least, and there was 2 or 3 games they fought twice in one game. I mean, one would win the fight, and the other one would get mad, and they'd fight again. I mean, it was hilarious. But dude, we lived for that stuff back then. Like, who's gonna fight tonight? I wonder if they even say that now. You know?
Well, it wasn't gonna be you.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Where's Cody? Where's Cody? Drinking
my gloves are sewed on.
Drinking water, standing by the bench.
Dude, every time a scrum would break out, I would look for the littlest guy and just grab him. Be like, we good? Yep. Okay. Just watch. Yeah, just wouldn't fight. So.
All right. Yeah. Last question I have for you, at least here. It's kind of, I guess, a 3-part question. Who's your favorite hockey player that either you looked up to or tried to tailor your game after? Favorite team, and then your Stanley Cup prediction for this year.
My favorite player growing up was Paul Kariya, and that's like nobody normally says him. I just loved the way he saw the game. You know, him and Wayne Gretzky. I loved Wayne Gretzky too. Just because you could tell, like, the way they see the game was so different than everybody else, kind of like McDavid now or Crosby, but, you know, obviously that was past my era. Favorite team was the Blues, and that's simply just because we had Fox Sports St. Louis here. I mean, the closest professional team to me when I was growing up was Chicago Blackhawks, which was 4 hours, in St. Louis, and for some reason we got St. Louis. Now we've got the Blue Jackets. And then honestly, I couldn't tell you a single thing about the NHL right now. I don't watch sports. I get depressed kind of when I watch sports. So
yeah, I know exactly how you feel about that. Kind of just dedicated your life to it, and that part's over, you know.
I don't watch it. You know, don't get me wrong, like, I'll look up highlights, or people send me highlights all the time, and I'm still like in awe, you know, it's hockey. I'll always love hockey, but I'd rather play sports than watch sports. I don't watch any sports. I just play sports. To this day, I play sport. You know what I'm saying? It's my go-to. So, what's your guys' predictions? Who you guys got winning it?
Um, oh, I'm a Caps fan. Kind of got into hockey like 4 or 5 years ago, and that's been the team I follow the most. So obviously I'd like to see them win it, but realistically, just following this year, Edmonton, just with McDavid.
Yeah, he's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But I mean, favorite team wise, Capitals. Team who I think is going to win it, probably Edmonton.
Yeah, I gotcha. Ovechkin's fun to watch too. He's just a gritty player. Yeah. Who do you got, Allard?
Well, you know my Flyers. I love my Flyers. They ain't gonna make it, I don't think. So I think it'd be cool to see Toronto win one and see Joe Thornton get a cup before he hangs him up. I feel like for the career that he's had, he deserves to at least have one Stanley Cup. Being close to when they lost in the finals a couple years back when they got just murdered, that wasn't cool. So
did they
I
have
don't know.
Marleau then? Patrick Marleau?
They did have him, yeah.
He was fun to watch.
Yeah, because he just broke Gordie Howe's record the other night for the most games played in the NHL.
Heck yeah. I mean,
yep.
I remember I went and watched San Jose play live in their barn, dude. And he was fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he's still giving her too. I mean, I wonder if you think that this is going to be his last season or if he's going to try to push on like Thornton is and kind of hoping to take a deal wherever you can get one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Toronto's my pick. They've their first round struggles that they've had so many years, and then getting Babcock out of there, and Austin Matthews seems like he's on a mission this year, leading the league in goals. And I don't know, I just feel like they're clicking. And Jack Campbell as well, former Badgers alumni, like awesome to see him in net and break the record for like 11 straight wins when he got in. And yeah, I think that'd be cool to see them win, or Carolina. I'd love to see the Hurricanes win a Stanley Cup too. Like,
yeah, that's
for their fans, dude. Like they haven't won it since like what 02 or 08. Like, I don't know, man. Like Carolina, you don't think hockey at all, and their fan base is just absolutely bonkers down there. So I think that'd be cool. Or even the Florida Panthers too. I mean, that'd be cool to see a team that who struggles to get fans in the building to go win a Stanley Cup. Because, you know, everybody loves the Tampa Bay Lightning, not the
That's
Florida
what
Panthers.
I was just getting ready to say. How do you have two teams there, Florida Panthers, you know, and then Tampa came in. Florida was already established. Tampa is like the place to be, you know, for, you know, hockey. They've got a huge fan base. And then Florida over here, you got half the fans yelling, shoot the puck when the other team has it, you know. It's hilarious. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's all we got for you today here. Thanks for your time and coming on. It was great catching up with you, and it'd be cool to put something together potentially, having like maybe if we could work it out to have like a handful of the boys on the team that we had all come on and do like a big Zoom call and type of just.
That'd be awesome. That would be
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I think we all need to get an alumni going.
Yeah, like I said, dude, as long as we don't have to go to Indiana, we're good.
Right on, boys. It was good talking to y'all. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good, buddy. We'll keep in touch.